23 on the map, so that's a bit going kind of northeast. And when we get to Vaxholm, we will be able to see the famous fortress. But so if we pretend that we go back in time here now, we go back 1300 years in time, of course it looked very different here. You could hardly see land as the bedrock here is rising. I was talking about the latest ice age that we had 20,000 years ago. And so everything was covered with ice. And it was pressed down for a very long time, and so it's still rising 3-4 millimeters. Of course, when the Swedish Vikings went out on their expeditions, and they were most likely sailing in this area heading east, and they came to Finland, they came over to Russia, to Ukraine, and to some of the Arabic countries also, and the Norwegian and the Danish Vikings, they went the other way. So when they came sailing here, they didn't come from Stockholm, because Stockholm did not exist 1300 years ago. But another place existed, and that was Birka. Birka was a very important trading center for the Vikings, and that's west of the city. When you go further up the lake, going west, you will come to this island where they have their little town called Birka, and this is a place you can visit during the summers. There are no houses left from that time, but so they were passing the old town most likely, even though the old town in those days they could hardly see the island, and came out here, and it was, well, mostly water that they saw. So, but now it looks very different, and of course in another 500,000 years it's going to look completely, it's going to be a different scenery, of course. And as the bedrock is rising, of course there are islands about to break the surface. We don't see them under the water. So when you go sailing in the Stockholm Archipelago, you need to look at your sea chart, like a sea map, but you know, a proper sea chart, if we call it. You can actually see, you know, where you're supposed to go, unless you want to bump into a rock under the water. But there are signs telling you where to go, and signs telling you where you should definitely not go. And sometimes people don't look, and then they get stuck. And to be a Viking, that was only a person going out on an expedition. The majority of the population during the Viking era, you know, they were people living on land. They were farmers, they were fishermen, they were serfs, slaves. Slavery was abolished in Sweden in the 1300s. But anyhow, I can see Vaxholm looking up a bit, and that's where we are heading. And we can actually see, you know, we can see everywhere traces from the inland ice on many of the islands, especially the northern side. You have this round-shaped rock. You have an example coming up here on the left-hand side after that bridge. You see the shape of the rock going straight into the water. And it's been shaped by the inland ice. When it started melting, it started moving towards the south, here and there, scraping up the top of this bedrock. I think we have a fine example of the island looking down to the right also. You see the shape of the rocks. It's been shaped by the inland ice. Ja, vi har tidningen nere på högra sidan, en liten ö där med litet rött hus. De har sådana där, vad kallas det för, solpaneler. So look to the right, a very tiny island, and they use solar panels on the roof, you know, to get some sort of electricity. And that's about it what they have, I think. Men vad skulle jag säga, Tynningen där nere, Torsbyfjärden. Bakom Tynningen har vi en annan liten ö och även Rindö. Så där nere till höger, där är den stora delen av den här farleden för de större båtarna att ta sig in till Stockholm. Så på andra sidan Tynninge har vi Rindö, och på andra sidan Rindö där ligger Oxdjupet mellan Rindö och Värmdö, och det är där de stora båtarna tar